200 feet below the surface of the Earth, buried beneath layers of reinforced concrete, rusting blast doors, and forgotten Cold War tunnels, Command Outpost Echo remained alive long after the world above had begun dying. The air inside the underground facility tasted stale, metallic, recycled too many times through failing filtration systems that groaned endlessly in the darkness. Dim emergency lights flickered along narrow corridors lined with cracked pipes and exposed wiring, casting long shadows across exhausted soldiers who had not seen sunlight in weeks. Captain Elias Vance stood silently before the massive tactical display at the center of the command chamber, watching the impossible happen in real time. Above them, the sun was disappearing, not setting, disappearing. Across every surviving satellite feed, every observatory lens, and every military telescope still operational, humanity witnessed the same horrifying image unfolding in space. A gigantic black structure, larger than entire continents, had moved directly between Earth and the Sun. It did not resemble a ship. It did not resemble anything human minds could properly understand. The object looked alive. Its surface shifted constantly like moving liquid metal covered in glowing fractures of deep crimson light. And behind it, something moved. Silence spread across the NORAD bunker. Nobody spoke after reading the message. Remain calm. The harvest has begun. General Ethan Cole stared at the screen while emergency red lights flashed across the command center. Then the bunker shook violently. At first, everyone thought it was an earthquake, but the vibration came from above. Something massive was moving over Earth. A technician suddenly shouted from the far side of the room. "Sir, thermal cameras are picking up objects in orbit." Ethan rushed toward the monitor. Hundreds of enormous shapes surrounded the planet. Black, motionless, impossible to identify. The objects were larger than cities, and they had appeared silently. One scientist whispered, "How did they reach Earth without detection?" Nobody answered. Then one of the objects moved. Across every remaining camera feed, people around the world watched a gigantic dark shape descend slowly through Earth's atmosphere above the Atlantic Ocean, and for the first time since the sun vanished, something in the darkness looked back at humanity. The object descended through Earth's atmosphere without making a sound. No fire, no sonic boom, no visible engines. It simply moved downward through the darkness like something that did not obey physics. Across the East Coast, millions watched the sky in terror as the gigantic black structure emerged above the Atlantic Ocean. Emergency broadcasts flooded every surviving network while military aircraft scrambled from bases across the country. Inside an ORAD, General Ethan Cole stood over the central command table watching live satellite feeds recover one by one. The object was enormous, larger than Manhattan. Its surface looked smooth at first, but when cameras zoomed closer, scientists realized the structure was moving. Not mechanically, biologically. Veins of dim red light pulsed beneath black metallic skin stretching across impossible distances. The thing looked alive. A military operator turned toward Ethan. "Sir, the President is requesting immediate status." Before Ethan could answer, every screen inside the bunker flickered again. The same message appeared. But this time there was more text. "Do not resist." Then another line slowly formed beneath it. "Your star has been collected." Cold silence filled the room. One scientist whispered the question nobody wanted to ask. "What does that mean?" Suddenly the Atlantic camera feeds exploded into static. Then the ocean began rising. Not waves. The entire ocean surface lifted upward beneath the object as if gravity itself had broken apart. Ships disappeared instantly beneath walls of black water. Coastal cities from Miami to Boston activated evacuation sirens while military commanders screamed orders across every channel. Ethan felt his chest tighten. This was not an invasion. It was something worse. Humanity was witnessing a process, a system. Like Earth had been selected for something ancient and automatic. Then the deep space radar operator froze. His face drained of color as he stared at incoming readings. "Sir," Ethan turned sharply. "What now?" The operator slowly pointed toward the giant tactical display. Objects were appearing beyond the moon. Thousands of them. More black structures entering the solar system silently. Each one larger than cities, each one moving toward Earth. And behind them, something even bigger was coming. The objects beyond the moon continued multiplying across an ORAD's tactical display. At first, scientists believed the sensors were malfunctioning. Then the numbers kept rising, hundreds, thousands, an endless stream of black structures entering the solar system in complete silence. General Ethan Cole stared at the screen while military officers argued around him. We need nuclear authorization. We can't target something that size. Where are they coming from? Nobody had answers. Outside the bunker, panic spread across Earth faster than any war in human history. Without sunlight, global temperatures began dropping immediately. Cities drowned in chaos as power grids overloaded and communication systems failed one after another. And still, the darkness above Earth remained completely empty. No stars, no moon, nothing. Then an ORID received another transmission. This one carried audio. A low humming sound echoed through the bunker speakers. It did not sound mechanical, it sounded alive. Several scientists covered their ears instantly. One collapsed to the floor bleeding from his nose. Ethan grabbed the nearest console. "Shut it off, we can't," the technician shouted back. The signal was forcing itself through every system automatically. Then the voice began speaking. Not English, not any human language. But somehow everyone understood it. The cycle returns. The room became ice cold. "Your world has been measured." A pause followed, then the final sentence came. "And found sufficient." Suddenly every satellite feed above the Atlantic Ocean returned at once. The giant object was gone. In its place was a hole. Not in the ocean, in reality itself. A massive circular fracture floated above the water, glowing faint red around the edges. The space inside the opening looked wrong, like the universe had been torn apart. And something was moving inside it, slowly emerging toward Earth. A young analyst whispered in terror. "That thing, it's bigger than the planet." Then global emergency networks activated across every remaining military frequency simultaneously. Unknown objects had begun landing worldwide. New York, London, Tokyo, Los Angeles. Humanity was no longer waiting for first contact. First contact had already begun. The first object landed in New York City at 17 p.m. Eastern Time. There was no impact, no explosion. The gigantic black structure simply descended between skyscrapers and stopped 20 feet above the streets of Manhattan. Every electronic system within 20 miles died instantly. Cars shut down, phones went black, weapons systems failed. Even the city's backup generators collapsed. Millions watched through emergency broadcasts as the object floated silently above Times Square, surrounded by abandoned vehicles and terrified civilians trapped in total darkness. Military helicopters approached first. 3 Apache gunships circled the structure carefully while commanders shouted over open frequencies. "And no craft, identify yourself immediately." No response. The helicopters moved closer. Then the object opened. Across its surface, thousands of glowing red lines spread outward like veins beneath skin. Cameras zoomed closer and revealed something horrifying. The structure was alive. The surface moved slowly like breathing flesh. One of the pilots whispered, "Oh God." Then the object looked back at them. A giant eye opened across the center of the craft, massive, black, unblinking. The helicopters vanished instantly. Not destroyed. Gone. No explosion. No debris. Nothing. 1 second they existed. The next, empty sky remained. Screaming spread through the streets below. Inside an ORAD, General Ethan Cole watched live feeds disappear one after another while new reports flooded across the command center. The same things were appearing worldwide. Paris, Moscow, Dubai, Chicago. Every major city on Earth was receiving visitors. Then another transmission hijacked global broadcasts. This time humanity finally saw them. Tall figures appeared on screen standing inside a dark chamber illuminated by dim red light. They looked almost human. Almost. Their skin was pale gray, their eyes completely black. Their movements unnaturally slow. One stepped forward toward the camera. When it spoke, billions across Earth heard the same cold voice simultaneously. "Do not fear." A pause followed. "You were chosen." The figure tilted its head slightly. "Most civilizations never survive long enough to be harvested." Then the transmission ended. Inside the New York landing zone, the giant eye slowly closed again. And the streets beneath the object began moving. At first people thought the asphalt was cracking. Then human hands started reaching upward through the pavement, thousands of them. People ran screaming through the streets of Manhattan as human hands clawed upward from beneath the asphalt. Pale hands, bleeding hands, thousands of them. The pavement cracked apart while bodies slowly pulled themselves out of the ground beneath the floating object. At first, survivors thought they were human. Then the things fully emerged. Their skin looked stretched and colorless, like corpses left underwater for years. Black veins crawled beneath their bodies while their empty eyes reflected dim red light from the object above Times Square. Every one of them was smiling. Military units surrounding the city finally opened fire. Machine guns thundered across the streets while tracer rounds tore through the creatures. Some fell, most kept moving. A Marine commander screamed into his radio, "Headshots aren't stopping them." The creatures rushed forward unnaturally fast. Civilians disappeared beneath crowds of pale bodies while soldiers were dragged screaming into darkness between abandoned vehicles. Inside an ORAD, panic spread across the bunker as similar footage appeared from every major city on Earth. Los Angeles had gone silent. London's emergency networks collapsed. Entire districts of Tokyo were being overrun. General Ethan Cole turned toward the scientific division. "What are these things?" No one answered immediately. Then Dr. Evelyn Shaw slowly stepped forward holding recovered satellite scans from the Atlantic fracture. Her hands were shaking. "They aren't invading us." Ethan stared at her. "What?" Evelyn pointed toward the floating object above Manhattan. "That thing isn't a ship." The room became silent. "It's a processing system." Cold fear spread through the bunker. Evelyn continued quietly, the sun disappearing. The darkness, the signals, she swallowed hard. "It's all part of something automated." One officer laughed nervously. "You're saying this is some kind of machine?" Evelyn looked directly at him. "No." A pause. "I think it's farming us." Before anyone could respond, emergency alarms exploded through NORAD. The deep space radar operator shouted, "Massive energy spike inside the Atlantic fracture." The tactical screens changed instantly. Something enormous was finally coming through the opening above the ocean. Something larger than anything humanity had ever imagined. And for the first time since the crisis began. Even the black objects orbiting Earth began moving away from it. The black objects above Earth retreated silently from orbit, not fleeing, making room. Inside an ORAD, every scientist stared at the Atlantic feeds while warning alarms screamed through the bunker nonstop. The fracture above the ocean was growing, miles wide now. Red lightning crawled across the edges of the tear in reality while the ocean beneath it spiraled upward into the sky like water trapped inside a giant invisible tornado. Then humanity saw it. At first, people thought it was another planet emerging through the fracture. But planets did not move like that. The object slowly pushed forward through the opening with horrifying precision. Black, endless, alive. Its surface was covered in gigantic circular patterns that resembled eyes opening and closing across miles of flesh-like armor. The thing was larger than continents, and it was entering Earth's atmosphere. Across the world, surviving military networks collapsed into chaos. Governments ordered nuclear launch preparation immediately. Submarines received final strike authorization. Entire air forces were scrambled despite most systems failing inside the darkness. Humanity was preparing for extinction. Inside New York, the pale creatures suddenly stopped attacking. Every one of them turned toward the sky together, smiling wider, waiting. General Ethan Cole watched the live feeds with cold disbelief. "How do we fight something that size?" Nobody answered. Then Dr. Evelyn Shaw noticed something strange on the radar data. "There's another signal." Ethan turned sharply. "Another object." She shook her head slowly. "No." Her face lost color. "It's coming from inside the moon." Silence filled the bunker. Then lunar observatory cameras activated automatically for the first time since the blackout began. The moon appeared on screen, cracked open. Massive sections of its surface were unfolding mechanically, revealing gigantic structures hidden beneath the lunar crust for thousands of years. Ancient machines, buried inside the moon itself. And they were waking up. The moon split apart above Earth. Across every surviving camera feed, gigantic sections of the lunar surface unfolded outward like metal petals opening around a hidden core. Entire cities stopped moving. People stared upward in frozen silence as ancient structures emerged from inside the moon itself. Massive black towers, glowing red rings. Machines larger than mountains. Humanity realized the terrifying truth at the same moment. The moon was artificial. Inside an ORAD, General Ethan Cole stepped backward from the screen slowly. "That's impossible." Dr. Evelyn Shaw shook her head. "No." Her voice trembled. "It was built." Then one of the lunar structures activated. A beam of white light erupted downward toward Earth, cutting through the darkness above the Atlantic fracture. The gigantic entity emerging from the tear suddenly stopped moving. For the first time, the thing reacted. Its massive eye patterns contracted violently across its surface. Then another beam fired from the moon, and another. The ancient machines hidden inside the lunar core began attacking the entity over Earth. Inside the bunker, alarms exploded across every console. New transmissions flooded military frequencies worldwide. But this signal was different. Human. A calm male voice echoed through every speaker on Earth. "If you can hear this. Humanity was never abandoned." Silence spread across an ORAD. The voice continued. "The lunar defense system has awakened after 12,000 years. General Ethan stared at the speakers. "Who the hell is this?" The answer came immediately. "My name is Atlas." A pause followed. "And I built your moon." Far above Earth, the giant structures inside the moon rotated toward the darkness spreading across the planet. Then thousands of hidden weapons activated simultaneously. The weapons hidden inside the moon fired together. Thousands of white beams slammed into the colossal entity above the Atlantic fracture for the first time since arriving. The thing screamed, not through air, through human minds. Across Earth, millions collapsed as the sound echoed inside their heads like shattered metal scraping against bone. Inside an ORAD, warning alarms exploded across the bunker while scientists covered bleeding ears. General Ethan Cole forced himself toward the main display. "What did the moon just fire?" Dr. Evelyn Shaw stared at the lunar feeds in disbelief. "Those aren't weapons," she swallowed hard. "They're containment systems." Above Earth, gigantic sections of the moon continued unfolding outward, revealing massive mechanical rings hidden beneath the lunar crust for thousands of years. The white shield spread around Earth like glowing glass surrounding the entire planet. The harvester slammed into it instantly. The impact shook the world. Massive earthquakes ripped through California, Japan, and South America while tsunamis swallowed entire coastlines. Satellites exploded in orbit as the moon's ancient machines struggled to contain the colossal entity pressing against the barrier. But the shield held. Barely. Inside NORAD, General Ethan Cole grabbed the edge of the command table as the bunker trembled violently. "What exactly are these harvesters?" The voice of Atlas answered calmly through the speakers. "They are older than your species by billions of years." Dr. Evelyn Shaw stepped closer to the microphone. "What do they want from Earth?" A short silence followed. Then Atlas replied, "Conscious life." Cold fear spread across the bunker. Ethan stared upward at the tactical displays showing the giant creature surrounding Earth. "You're saying that thing eats civilizations?" "No," Atlas answered. "It collects them." The giant eyes across the harvester's body suddenly opened wider. Then humanity heard the whisper, soft, ancient, almost loving, "We found you again." Across the planet, millions froze as the voice echoed directly inside their minds. Children stopped crying instantly. Crowds became silent. Military pilots lost control of aircraft mid-flight. The harvester was communicating with humanity itself. Then the fracture above the Atlantic widened further. Inside the darkness beyond reality, another eye opened, far larger than the first. Even the harvester surrounding Earth moved aside slightly, like it feared something coming from the other side. Inside NORAD, warning systems exploded across every monitor. "New entity detected. Size unknown." Ethan looked toward the lunar feeds. "Atlas, what's behind that thing?" For the first time since the crisis began, the ancient AI hesitated. Then it answered quietly, "The end." Above Earth, the moon's giant rings rotated faster while hidden weapons continued firing into the darkness. And deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, something enormous began rising toward the surface. The Atlantic Ocean exploded upward. A massive black structure rose from beneath the water, while entire coastlines vanished beneath 100-foot waves racing toward North America and Europe. At first, humanity believed another harvester was emerging. Then the object fully surfaced. It was mechanical, ancient, and impossibly large. The structure stretched for miles beneath the ocean surface, covered in glowing white symbols identical to the machines hidden inside the moon. "Inside NORAD, Doctor?" Evelyn Shaw stared at the scans in disbelief. There was another system hidden on Earth, Atlas answered immediately. The Lunar Defense Network was never designed to fight alone. Gigantic sections of the structure unfolded above the Atlantic while water poured from its surface like waterfalls falling back into the ocean. Then enormous towers began rising upward one after another. Weapons, thousands of them. The Harvester orbiting Earth reacted instantly. For the first time since arriving, the creature moved away from the planet. Almost cautiously, General Ethan looked toward the tactical screens. It's scared. No, Atlas corrected. It remembers. Suddenly every hidden weapon across the Atlantic structure activated simultaneously. White energy flooded across the ocean while giant circular rings rotated beneath the storm clouds. Then a beam fired upward. The blast tore directly through the Harvester's body. For the first time, humanity saw the thing bleed. Black liquid spread across the sky like living oil while millions of screaming voices echoed from inside the creature. But the wound healed almost instantly, and then the Harvester became angry. Every eye across its massive body opened together. The darkness above Earth began moving. Clouds twisted unnaturally across the planet while entire cities lost gravity for several seconds. Cars floated upward into the air, oceans pulled away from coastlines. Air itself seemed unstable, inside the fracture beyond reality. More eyes opened, dozens now, watching Earth silently from the darkness beyond the universe. Then Atlas spoke words that froze everyone inside NORAD. The containment cycle has failed. Ethan turned sharply toward the speakers. What does that mean? The answer came immediately. It means humanity has been discovered. The words echoed through NORAD like a death sentence. Humanity has been discovered. Outside the bunker, the world was collapsing. Across New York, entire skyscrapers floated several feet above the streets before crashing back down. In London, gravity failures sent trains flying from their tracks. Massive storms formed across every ocean simultaneously while the sky itself twisted unnaturally above Earth. And still, the sun remained gone. Only darkness covered the planet. General Ethan Cole stared at the tactical display showing the gigantic Harvester surrounding Earth. How long until that thing breaks through the shield? Atlas answered immediately. 14 minutes. Silence filled the bunker. One officer whispered, "That's impossible." But everyone could already see the truth. Cracks were spreading across the glowing barrier surrounding Earth. Each impact from the Harvester sent massive shockwaves through the moon's ancient defense network. The shield was failing. Then emergency alarms exploded across NORAD again. A military operator shouted from the communication station. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from orbit." Ethan rushed toward the monitor. At first, the screen showed only static. Then human faces appeared. Astronauts aboard the International Lunar Station. Or what was left of them. Their eyes were completely black. Their skin pale and stretched and naturally tight. And all of them were smiling. One leaned toward the camera slowly. When it spoke, its jaw moved afar. "They can see you now." The feed suddenly distorted. Behind the astronauts, something enormous moved outside the station windows. A giant eye opening in space itself. The station vanished instantly. No explosion, no debris, only empty darkness remained. Inside NORAD, panic spread through the command center. Ethan turned toward the speaker systems. "Atlas, how do we stop them?" The ancient AI responded calmly. "You do not stop Harvesters." Cold silence followed. "You survive them." Above Earth, the moon's hidden rings began rotating faster than ever before. Then another message appeared across every screen on the planet. Not from Atlas, from the Harvesters. A single sentence. "Return the sun." And suddenly, humanity realized something even more terrifying. The creatures had not come to destroy Earth. They had come looking for something hidden here. The message remained on every screen across Earth. "Return the sun." Inside NORAD, nobody spoke for several seconds. General Ethan Cole stared at the glowing words while the bunker shook beneath another impact against the planetary shield. Then he slowly turned toward the speakers. "Atlas," his voice was tight. "What does that message mean?" The ancient AI answered immediately. "It means the Harvesters know humanity still possesses the stellar core." Confused silence spread through the command center. "Doctor." Evelyn Shaw frowned. The what, for the first time since revealing itself, Atlas sounded almost human. 12,000 years ago, Your species inherited an object capable of hiding stars. Every scientist inside an ORAD froze. Ethan stepped closer to the console. You're telling me humans hid the sun? No, Atlas corrected. Your ancestors did. Above Earth, the Harvester slammed against the shield again. Massive cracks spread across the barrier surrounding the planet while earthquakes ripped through Asia and North America. The moon's ancient defense rings burned brighter trying to contain the impact. Atlas continued calmly. The stellar core was created during the First Harvest War. Holographic projections suddenly activated across an ORAD's main chamber. Ancient images appeared in the air. Human cities far beyond modern Earth, gigantic fleets fighting impossible creatures. Entire stars vanishing into artificial darkness. Humanity had existed before recorded history. And they had fought these things before. Dr. Evelyn stared at the projections in disbelief. This can't be real. It is, Atlas replied. The civilization you call humanity is only the final remnant. Then the hologram changed. A giant machine appeared hidden deep beneath Earth's crust, circular, endless, glowing white. The stellar core was buried beneath your planet after the First War. General Ethan felt cold. You hid an alien super weapon under Earth. No, Atlas answered quietly. We hid your sun. Outside the bunker, the sky suddenly moved. The darkness above Earth began splitting apart. And for the first time since the crisis began, a small beam of sunlight appeared through the black sky above the Atlantic Ocean. The beam of sunlight lasted only 3 seconds, but it changed everything. Across Earth, billions looked upward in shock as golden light pierced through the darkness above the Atlantic Ocean for the first time since the sun vanished. Then the darkness closed again. The light disappeared, but humanity had seen enough. The sun still existed. Inside NORAD, scientists rushed between terminals while satellite systems suddenly came back online for several seconds. Dr. Evelyn Shaw stared at the recovered readings in disbelief. The sun never left the solar system, Atlas answered immediately. It was phased outside observable reality. General Ethan looked toward the lunar feeds. You hid an entire star. Yes. A pause followed. The Harvesters consume advanced civilizations by draining stellar systems. Cold silence spread through the bunker. The stellar core was designed to hide stars from detection. Above Earth, the Harvester surrounding the planet became violent. Its massive body twisted across the atmosphere while giant eyes opened across its flesh-like armor. It had seen the sunlight, and now it knew exactly where humanity hid the sun. The moon's ancient defense systems fired continuously into the creature, but the Harvester no longer cared about the damage. It was focused on Earth, focused on something buried beneath the planet. Then emergency sirens exploded across NORAD. Massive seismic activity had begun beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Ethan looked toward the geological scans. The ocean floor was opening. Something enormous was activating deep beneath Earth's crust. Atlas spoke calmly through the bunker speakers. The stellar core is awakening. Suddenly all power inside an ORAD failed for several seconds. Complete darkness swallowed the bunker. Then the emergency lights returned. But something had changed. Every monitor inside the command center now displayed the same image. A giant door, white, circular, endless, slowly opening beneath the Earth itself. And from somewhere far below the planet, human voices could be heard screaming. The screaming beneath Earth grew louder. Inside an ORAD, every speaker system carried the sound simultaneously, while scientists stared at the giant white door displayed across the monitors. It was opening slowly beneath the Atlantic Ocean, and something was alive behind it. General Ethan Cole grabbed the edge of the command table tightly. Atlas, what is inside the stellar core? For the first time, the ancient AI did not answer immediately. Then the voice finally spoke, the first humans. Cold silence filled the bunker. Dr. Evelyn Shaw looked up sharply. What? Holographic projections activated across the chamber again. Ancient Earth appeared above the command floor. But it was not primitive. Gigantic cities covered continents. Massive orbital structures surrounded the planet. Human fleets crossed the solar system thousands of years before recorded history. Humanity had once ruled the stars. Then the projections changed. The Harvesters arrived. Entire suns disappeared. Worlds froze instantly. Civilizations vanished beneath endless darkness. Humanity lost the war, but not completely. Atlas continued speaking calmly. The The first civilization created the stellar core to hide Earth from the harvesters. The hologram zoomed beneath the Atlantic Ocean. A gigantic underground structure stretched through Earth's mantle like an artificial world hidden inside the planet itself. They placed themselves in stasis beneath the core. General Ethan stared at the projection in disbelief. "You're saying ancient humans are still alive under Earth?" "Yes," a pause followed. "And the harvesters have returned for them." Above Earth, the planetary shield cracked again. This time entire sections shattered apart across the sky. The colossal harvester pushed one massive limb through the barrier. Cities across the eastern United States lost power instantly. Then the darkness above the Atlantic Ocean split open completely. And for the first time, humanity saw what existed behind the harvesters. A structure larger than planets, watching Earth from the darkness beyond reality. The structure beyond the harvesters filled the sky. Humanity could not fully comprehend its size. It stretched through the darkness behind reality itself like an artificial universe watching Earth from the other side of existence. Entire planets would have looked microscopic beside it. Inside NORAD, every scientist stood frozen. The thing was not alive, it was mechanical. Ancient beyond imagination. And at its center, a single giant white eye slowly opened. Atlas spoke quietly through the bunker speakers. "The archive has awakened." General Ethan Cole stared upward at the tactical displays. "What is the archive?" No answer came immediately. Then every monitor inside an ORAD flickered violently. Suddenly, humanity saw memories that were not their own. Ancient wars across dying galaxies, stars collapsing into darkness. Civilizations erased by the harvesters one after another, and always. The archive remained watching, recording, waiting. Dr. Evelyn Shaw collapsed against the console, breathing heavily. "It's been observing the universe," Atlas answered, "for billions of years." Above Earth, the colossal harvester surrounding the planet moved aside slowly. Not retreating, bowing. The giant entity feared the archive. Then the white eye beyond reality focused directly on Earth, on humanity, and the screaming beneath the Atlantic suddenly stopped. Complete silence followed. A new voice echoed across every mind on Earth. "Not cruel. Not angry, ancient. We remember your species." General Ethan felt cold spread through his body. The voice continued, "You were the first civilization that resisted harvest." Holograms appeared automatically across the bunker. Ancient humans fighting impossible wars against the darkness between stars. Human fleets dying beside collapsing suns, entire galaxies burning. Humanity had once stood against these things alone. And lost. Then the archive spoke again, "But your extinction was never confirmed." Above Earth, the giant white door beneath the Atlantic Ocean fully opened. Blinding light erupted from the planet's core. And something inside Earth finally woke up. The light beneath the Atlantic Ocean erupted through Earth like a second sunrise. For the first time since the blackout began, the planet was illuminated again. Not by the sun, by something hidden inside Earth itself. Across the oceans, gigantic white structures began rising from beneath the water. Entire coastlines shook violently while ancient machines buried beneath continents activated one after another. Humanity realized the terrifying truth: Earth had never been a normal planet. It was a fortress. Inside NORAD, warning systems overloaded as energy levels beneath the planet climbed beyond measurable limits. General Ethan Cole stared at the readings. "How much power is down there?" Dr. Evelyn looked at the scans in disbelief. "It's comparable to a star." Atlas answered calmly, "The stellar core was built using a captured sun." Silence spread through the bunker. Above Earth, the harvesters finally attacked together. Thousands of black entities emerged from the fracture beyond reality and descended toward the planet like living shadows. The moon's defense rings fired continuously into the swarm, while gigantic weapons beneath Earth's oceans awakened after thousands of years of silence. The sky became war. White beams tore through darkness, while entire continents shook beneath the impacts. Some harvesters exploded instantly, others kept advancing despite losing massive sections of their bodies. Then the Atlantic Ocean split apart completely. A gigantic structure rose from beneath the planet, humanoid, mechanical, larger than mountains. Its armor glowed white like contained sunlight. Ancient human symbols burned across its surface. Every surviving military system on Earth identified the same thing simultaneously. Titan Unit, Archelon. Humanity's first weapon had awakened. And above the planet, the archive watched silently. Titan Unit Archelon took its first step across the Atlantic Ocean. Entire tsunamis formed around the colossal machine while glowing sunlight-like energy burned across its white armor. For the first time since arriving, the harvesters stopped advancing. Inside Norid, stunned silence filled the bunker. The Titan was impossible, larger than cities. Powered by a captured star, built by ancient humanity thousands of years before recorded history. Atlas spoke calmly through the speakers. Archelon was the final defense of the first civilization. Above Earth, the gigantic Titan raised one massive arm toward the harvesters descending from the fracture. Then it fired. A beam brighter than the sun erupted across the sky. 3 harvesters vanished instantly. Not destroyed, erased. The darkness surrounding Earth tore apart beneath the blast while shockwaves rolled across the atmosphere like nuclear explosions. For the first time, humanity heard the harvesters scream in fear. Across the planet, surviving civilians stared upward as the giant Titan battled the creatures surrounding Earth. Then the archive moved. The giant white eye beyond reality narrowed slowly toward Archelon. And something impossible began emerging behind it. Another Titan, bigger than Earth itself, black, ancient, covered in billions of glowing eyes. Atlas' voice lowered for the first time, their war machine. General Ethan stared toward the impossible figure emerging from the fracture. You mean there's more than one of ours? No, Atlas answered quietly, that one belongs to them. And above Earth, the true war finally began. The enemy Titan emerged fully from the fracture beyond reality. Humanity could not comprehend its true size. The black machine stretched across space itself like a living nightmare made of metal and darkness. Billions of glowing eyes opened across its body while entire fleets disappeared beside it like dust near a storm. Even Titan Unit Archelon looked small in comparison. Inside Norid, nobody spoke. The tactical screens could barely process the enemy war machine. Systems crashed repeatedly trying to measure its scale. General Ethan Cole stared upward at the impossible figure. How do we fight that? Atlas answered quietly, we never learned. Above Earth, the giant black Titan slowly raised one enormous arm toward the planet. Then gravity across the world collapsed. Entire cities began floating upward. Buildings tore free from the ground. Oceans rose into the sky like rivers flowing backward. Military aircraft spiraled helplessly into the atmosphere while millions screamed across every continent. The enemy Titan was bending reality itself. Inside the Atlantic Ocean, Archelon turned toward the creature emerging from the fracture. Ancient sunlight burned brighter across its white armor. Then the human Titan moved. The impact of its first step shattered coastlines across the eastern United States. Massive waves rolled through Europe while the moon's defense rings rotated around Earth at maximum power. Archelon launched upward into the sky. Humanity watched as the giant Titan accelerated beyond anything that large should have been capable of. Then it struck the enemy war machine. The collision exploded across orbit like a second Big Bang. Shockwaves ripped through the atmosphere while satellites vaporized instantly. The darkness covering Earth cracked apart for several seconds, allowing real sunlight to break through the sky once again. Across the planet, billions saw the sun for the first time since the blackout began. People cried openly in the streets, but the light lasted only moments. The enemy Titan recovered instantly. Then one of its gigantic eyes focused directly on Archelon. A black beam erupted from the creature's body. The human Titan disappeared through clouds of fire and shattered atmosphere before crashing back into the Atlantic Ocean hard enough to split the seabed apart. Inside an ORAD, warning alarms screamed across every system. Archelon had lost power across 70% of its body, and the enemy Titan had not even been damaged. Then the archive spoke again. Its ancient voice echoed calmly inside every human mind on Earth. You were always a resilient species. A pause followed. But resilience alone does not stop extinction. Deep beneath Earth, the stellar core suddenly activated at full power. The stellar core awakened beneath Earth like a second star being born inside the planet. Across every continent, the ground split apart as ancient structures hidden beneath human civilization activated simultaneously. New York, Tokyo, London, Dubai. Gigantic white towers rose from beneath the cities, covered in glowing symbols older than recorded history. Humanity had been living above buried machines for thousands of years without knowing it. Inside Norid, every monitor flooded with impossible energy readings. Dr. Evelyn Shaw stared at the data in shock. The core is overheating, Atlas answered immediately. It is preparing for ignition. General Ethan looked toward the lunar feeds. Ignition for what? Before Atlas could answer, the enemy Titan attacked again. The colossal black war machine raised both arms toward Earth. Then the sky opened. Hundreds of smaller fractures appeared across the atmosphere while thousands of harvesters descended toward the planet like living meteors. The invasion had begun. Archelon rose from the Atlantic Ocean again despite massive damage across its body. Entire sections of the Titan's white armor were shattered, exposing burning energy beneath its surface like captured sunlight leaking into the world. But the ancient machine still stood. Then humanity saw something impossible. The Titan looked toward Earth, toward humanity itself, and for the first time, it spoke. A deep mechanical voice echoed across every surviving communication system on the planet. Children of Earth, people frozen streets worldwide, you are not the final generation of humanity. Archelon slowly raised one massive arm toward the descending harvesters. You are the survivors of the First War. Then every hidden structure beneath Earth activated together. White energy exploded upward into the atmosphere while ancient defense systems buried under human cities opened fire after 12,000 years of silence. The sky became a battlefield. Harvesters vanished in flashes of burning light. Some crashed into oceans. Others tore through the defenses and descended toward the surface. Inside Chicago, one of the creatures landed directly in the city center. Millions watched emergency broadcasts as the harvester unfolded into a towering pale figure with black eyes and stretched human skin. Then it smiled toward the cameras. "We remember your species," it whispered. "And this time, there will be nothing left." Far above Earth, the enemy Titan began charging another attack. But deep beneath the planet, something even older than Archelon was waking up. Deep beneath Earth, ancient chambers began opening around the stellar core. Inside Norid, every monitor flooded with seismic warnings while the planet shook violently beneath something waking far below human civilization. Atlas spoke quietly, "The Founders are awakening." General Ethan stared at the holograms. "You mean the first humans?" "Yes." Above Earth, the enemy Titan fired another black beam toward the planet. Archelon intercepted it midair, but the impact shattered massive sections of the Titan's armor. Humanity was losing. Then Chicago suddenly went silent. Emergency broadcasts returned seconds later showing empty streets and one harvester standing alone in the city center, smiling. "We found the core," it whispered. Then every screen inside an ORAD changed. Ancient human faces appeared inside glowing stasis chambers beneath Earth. One founder slowly opened his eyes. And for the first time, even Atlas became silent. The founder stepped out of the stasis chamber beneath Earth. For 12,000 years, humanity's first civilization had slept beside the stellar core waiting for the harvesters to return. Now they were awake. Inside Norid, every screen showed the same figure walking through the glowing chambers beneath Earth's crust. Tall, human, ancient. White light moved beneath his skin like living sunlight. General Ethan Cole stared silently. "That's human," Atlas answered quietly. "He is the last commander of the first civilization." Above Earth, the enemy Titan prepared another attack while thousands of harvesters descended through the atmosphere toward burning cities below. Human defenses were collapsing. Archelon could barely stand. Then the founder looked upward, toward the sky, toward the harvesters. And he spoke one sentence: "Return the sun." Deep beneath Earth, the stellar core activated completely. The planet shook violently as gigantic rings hidden inside Earth's mantle began rotating around the captured star buried within the core. Then the darkness above Earth cracked apart. Real sunlight exploded across the planet for the first time since the blackout began. People across the world collapsed crying as warmth returned to Earth again. But the harvesters screamed. The sunlight was hurting them. Their black flesh burned wherever the light touched it. Inside the fracture beyond reality, the giant archive opened all of its eyes at once. For the first time, the ancient machine looked afraid. The founder raised one hand toward the sky, and the sun answered. Massive solar eruptions exploded outward across the solar system while the stellar core amplified the star's energy beyond natural limits. The sky itself became fire. Harvesters across Earth began disintegrating instantly beneath the sunlight. Even the enemy Titan staggered backward as its black armor cracked apart. Humanity finally understood the truth. The Harvesters had never feared weapons. They feared the sun itself. Then the Founder turned toward Atlas, opened the final gate. Atlas hesitated. Doing so will destroy the core. The Founder looked toward Earth one last time. That is why we built it. Above the planet, the archive began retreating back into the fracture. But it was too late. Humanity had stopped hiding. Atlas opened the final gate. Across the solar system, the moon's ancient defense rings aligned with the stellar core beneath Earth for one final activation. Then the sun changed. Humanity watched in silence as the star expanded across space like a living god awakening after thousands of years trapped behind artificial darkness. Golden light flooded the solar system, not normal sunlight. Something stronger, ancient. The Harvesters began dying instantly. Entire swarms disintegrated into black ash beneath the expanding waves of solar energy. The enemy Titan screamed as massive cracks spread across its body while billions of glowing eyes burned out one after another. Above Earth, Archelon stood again. Its damaged armor reignited with white fire as the Titan raised both arms toward the sky. Then the final battle began. The human Titan collided with the enemy war machine directly above Earth while the sun itself burned through the fracture beyond reality. The impact split space apart, oceans rose, continents shook. Satellites vanished, and inside the fracture. The archive finally spoke one last time. You were always dangerous. The Founder stood beside the stellar core beneath Earth while alarms screamed through the underground chambers. The system was collapsing. Atlas' voice echoed quietly. The core will overload in 90 seconds. The Founder closed his eyes briefly. For humanity, it was enough. Then he activated the final sequence. The stellar core detonated. A wave of white sunlight exploded outward across the fracture beyond reality, consuming the Harvesters, the enemy Titan, and the archive itself inside endless fire. Then silence returned to the universe. The darkness vanished, the stars returned. And for the first time in 12,000 years, Earth saw an unhidden sun. Weeks later, humanity rebuilt beneath real daylight again. Cities recovered, governments returned, the oceans calmed. But deep beneath Norid, General Ethan Cole stared silently at one final message left behind by Atlas before the AI disappeared forever. A single sentence: they were only the first. Far beyond the edge of the observable universe, something opened its eyes.